The Pirates are a low-revenue team that historically is a bottom-5 payroll team. That's who they are. That's who they're going to be. Welcome, everyone, to the Monday edition of Fair Territory. And as the races heat up, we have a ton to talk about. And actually, for the first part of the show, I'm just going to stick to one league, the National League, and focus on one division, the National League West, because what is going on in the West is kind of the center of the whole thing in Major League Baseball right now. Now, over the weekend, I was in St. Louis. We had Dodgers at Cardinals on Saturday. And if you missed it, and you shouldn't have, of course, but if you missed it, I started the show, my first segment was on the Dodgers pitching staff. Tyler Glasnow had just gone on the injured list that day to make room for Bobby Miller, and they have all these questions still about their starting rotation. And what I said at the top of the show is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to envision the Dodgers getting through 3 and possibly 4 postseason rounds. There are questions about virtually every one of their starters, and I would even include Jack Flaherty, who had the back issue earlier this year, but certainly looks great right now. Glasnow on the IL with an elbow issue. He says it's minor, didn't want to go on the IL, but he is there. Yamamoto, who knows when we're going to see him again? I imagine we will. Who knows how good he'll be at that point? Gavin Stone has maybe been their best starter all season, the kid, and he's sort of fading right now. Clayton Kershaw, brilliant on Sunday against the Cardinals, but can you rely on that start after start after start? And then we're talking about Bobby Miller, who just rejoined the rotation on Saturday. And Bobby Miller threw harder than he had been throwing, but was wild and kind of all over the place. The Dodgers have depth. They have incredible depth all around and including on their pitching staff, but it's not what it once was. And there was a great tweet, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago. It was from a fan. And he basically said, in March, what are we saying? We're saying, oh my gosh, the Dodgers have all this pitching. And then in the division series, what are we saying? My gosh, the Dodgers need 2 innings out of Joe Kelly tonight or they are cooked. Now, the good news for the Dodgers is more on the position side. There was some bad news on that front as well this weekend. Freddie Freeman injured his finger. You might have heard me say Freddie Finger on the broadcast. Not great, but anyway, that's what happened. His status as we tape on Monday is uncertain. He is going for imaging, might need an injured list stint. We do not know yet. But they are getting 2 players back on Monday, 2 really significant players. Tommy Edman, who has yet to play a game this season, and of course was traded from the Cardinals to the Dodgers, and Max Muncy, who has been out forever with an oblique strain. So when they get those guys back, and if Freeman is healthy, let's take a look at what their lineup might look like, because it's awfully interesting, and I'll show you exactly how it might look. Shohei Ohtani at the top, Mookie following him, Freddie, if healthy. Then Teoscar, Max Muncy, Will Smith, Gavin Lux, Tommy Edman, and Miguel Rojas. A lot of right-left in there, a lot of balance. And what Edman brings, and the Dodgers are really excited about his arrival, is speed, athleticism, bat-to-ball skills, situational hitting skills. He's a guy who will be a really nice complement to their lineup if healthy and producing. We don't know. We haven't seen him this year. They expect him to be their center fielder. So the Dodgers, mercifully for them, the Diamondbacks and Padres both slowed down a little bit this weekend. The Diamondbacks got swept in Tampa Bay, and the Padres lost 2 of 3 in Colorado. The Padres and Diamondbacks, though, with their starting pitching, in my opinion, are probably in better shape than the Dodgers are. The Padres right now, Musgrove looked really good on Sunday. Again, he's building up his innings, but that's 2 starts now. He looks better. They've got Waldron. They've got Dylan Cease, of course, at the top of their rotation, and Michael King pitching well as the possibility of Yu Darvish coming back. So they're in decent shape with regard to their rotation. Now, they have an injury concern of their own. Ha-Seong Kim had a jammed shoulder on Sunday, and who knows what his status might be. But my goodness, the one thing the Padres have is shortstops and infielders. So even if Kim is down, they can figure out ways to realign their infield. They can go Arias at first, Cronenworth at second, Bogarts back at short. They can do some other things as well. So they should be okay in regard to where they stand with their infield. Now, the Diamondbacks, too, another injury concern for them. They're already without Christian Walker and Gabriel Moreno, and it really showed over the weekend against Tampa Bay with Moreno out. The Rays ran all over them. 12 stolen bases in this series, 7 on Sunday. But now Ketel Marte's status is questionable as well. He's had that ankle thing that's been nagging him for about a week. He is an MVP candidate. He is kind of the heart and soul of that team, their offensive engine. They badly need him to be healthy. But as with the Padres, I sort of like where the rotation is. It's Gallen at the top. Eduardo Rodriguez is back. Merrill Kelly is back, though he did not pitch well on Sunday. Jordan Montgomery, much better start his last time out. And Brandon Pfaadt is looking like one of the better young pitchers in the majors. Their bullpen has also been pretty good. They've had some closure issues, but they're overall okay. So it's going to be a really good race. We can look at the standings right here to see exactly where we are right now. It's not as close as it was maybe a couple of days ago, but you can see the Dodgers have a lead, 3 games, and the Diamondbacks are 4 games back. That's 3 games over the Padres and 4 over the Diamondbacks. So, interesting time in the NL West. Diamondbacks have a difficult schedule coming up. They're, after Miami, going to need to face some really good teams. Boston and the Mets and the Dodgers, some others. But this is going to go, I would imagine, right down to the wire. Those 2 teams, the Padres and Diamondbacks, also in fairly commanding wild card position. Now, for more on the Dodgers, Alana Rizzo and Clint Pasillas will host Dodgers Territory at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 Pacific. That is on the Dodgers Territory YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. Now, one more item in the National League to get through, and this is a really important one. It involves a team that a lot of people have overlooked all season long, and that's that team you see in the 3rd spot right there, the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, here is a race that I don't know that anyone saw developing, but here we go. For the National League's best record, for the top seed, you saw it right there. It's the Phillies in first place, the Dodgers in second by half game, and the Brewers are only 1 game back in the race for the National League's best record. The Brewers have an 11-game lead in the National League Central. That is the largest lead of any division leader. It is a lead that has doubled in the last 2 weeks. Now, this is partly a reflection of how bad the NL Central is, but it's also a reflection of how good the Brewers are and how good they have been really all season. And I want to focus on their bullpen because that's kind of an underrated aspect of this team, and it has been really the entire year. Let's look at their bullpen ERA relative to the rest of the league because it's right up there. Now, the Brewers are coming off a sweep of the Guardians this weekend, and their bullpen ERA ranks 2nd in the majors. Second to only the Guardians. You see it right there. The Guardians, 2.67. Brewers, pretty far behind at 3.24, but they're second. And then the Braves, Dodgers, and Astros behind them. What's fascinating about the Brewers' bullpen is, okay, they have Devin Williams back now, and he is one of the great relievers in the game. But they've pieced together the rest of these guys, some of whom, many of whom, have kind of come out of nowhere. I'm talking about Jared Koenig, minor league deal last November. I'm talking about Brian Hudson. He was the guy DFA'd for Yoshinobu Yamamoto and then traded to the Brewers from the Dodgers. Trevor McGill was a minor trade with the Twins in April of 23. Joel Payamps was part of the Esteury Ruiz heist that also brought the Brewers William Contreras. And Elvis Peguero, he came over in the Hunter Renfroe deal. That was in November of 2022. So they have built a bullpen. They have developed their bullpen on the fly, and they have built one of the best bullpens in the National League. The Brewers obviously suffered a blow last week when they received the news that Christian Yelich will not be back this season, but their offense has been rather dynamic all year, and Churio has come on now, strong Rookie of the Year candidate. They've got a lot of good things happening offensively. I still question their starting pitching, but my goodness, it has held up so far, and again, they lead the NL Central by 11 games. Obviously, the Milwaukee Brewers are a team that could be quite formidable in October. Time now for the Inside Dish, the part of the show where I talk about a story I've written, trend in the game, or something else entirely. And this week, I want to talk about a story that I co-wrote with 2 other writers from The Athletic, Stephen J. Nesbitt and Zach Meisel. This is a story that was brought to my attention by our News Enterprise team. That's a group we have at The Athletic. Editors and writers that discuss stories every week and are constantly looking for new ideas. Stephen and Zach are members of that team. That team consists of a lot of our all-stars. Actually, our whole team is full of all-stars, to be perfectly honest. But those two guys and the people on the News Enterprise team are really good at coming up with really interesting things. And a few days back, Steven came to me and pointed out the Paul Skenes situation with the Pirates. And not just that he might get shut down, but just the implications of what is going on with him. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting. I'm not part of the News Enterprise team, but obviously I am in contact with our writers all the time, and we decided to push forward with this story. Now, the story, it's complicated and it's long, but I want to go through what it's about. It basically stems from two rules that were added in the 2022 CBA. The first is the prospect promotion incentive. That's the one where if you're a consensus top 100 prospect and you open the season on the major league roster or are promoted within 2 weeks, and then you win either Rookie of the Year or finish top 3 MVP Cy Young, at that point you get your team an extra draft pick. This has happened a couple of times already, and this rule was implemented to discourage teams from engaging in service time manipulation, holding guys down. And we've seen it come into effect. Julio Rodriguez, Gunnar Henderson, Corbin Carroll, all recent Rookies of the Year since this CBA was implemented, and they got their teams an extra draft pick. The other rule that is relevant here is the one where if a player finishes first or second in the Rookie of the Year in his respective league, regardless of when he is called up, he will get a full year of service time. We've seen this rule come into effect as well. Adley Rutschman, second in the AL rookie race in 2022. He got a full year of service time even though he didn't come up until late May. Tanner Bybee with the Guardians, same thing last year, came up in late April, second in Rookie of the Year, got a full year of service time. So, how is this relevant for Paul Skenes? He came up May 11th. That's when the Pirates promoted him to the majors after this slow ramp up. So, the Pirates cannot get an extra draft pick because they promoted Paul Skenes too late. To get him really in that situation where you could get that draft pick, he had to be up within the first 2 weeks of the season. And as I said, the Pirates, given that this is Skenes' first full professional season, didn't think that was a particularly good idea to rush him to the big leagues. They would have run out of innings. They wanted to get to know him first. They just wanted this to go on a more deliberate pace. Okay, turns out things have worked out pretty well for Paul Skenes. Started the All-Star game. He's been brilliant. He is a leading contender for Rookie of the Year. Now, this is where the rest of the situation comes in. At some point, you would think the Pirates are at least going to ease up on Paul Skenes. Maybe do the same thing with him that the White Sox are doing with Garrett Crochet. That seems to be their plan right now. Reduce the number of innings he is throwing per start, but keeping him on a normal starter schedule. The Pirates at this point have no plans to shut Skenes down. They more likely are going to pursue just what I said. Keep starting, but pitch fewer innings per start. That would be the way to ease him back and keep his innings, in their mind, at a reasonable level. Now, Skenes, if he does not throw another pitch this season, could finish top 2 Rookie of the Year. He's been that good, right? But the interesting thing here is that the rookie race is tightening, and that if he gets shut down, there's no guarantee that he would be top 2. And I want to show you the number of rookies in play here for Rookie of the Year. Some, of course, stronger candidacies than others. But let's take a look at the list of rookies who are having outstanding years in the National League. It's rather astounding to see the number of players who are kind of in this competition. Okay, Skenes is listed there. Jackson Merrill might be the front runner right now. Shota Imanaga, he's been brilliant. Jackson Churio, amazing numbers since June 1st, an OPS of nearly 900. Tyler Fitzgerald might go 20-20 in fewer than 100 games. Mason Wynn, really good year at shortstop for the Cardinals. Michael Busch for the Cubs at first base. And Tobias Myers, fantastic pitcher for the Brewers this season. Now, I might have missed one. People have been yelling at me for weeks about which guys I might be missing or overlooking. But this thing right now, if you did the vote today, probably would come down to Skenes or Merrill. So, if you're the Pirates, you're tempted, I would think, to shut him down. Shut Skenes down, and maybe at that point, get yourself another year of service. This is a critical question for the Pirates. It's the difference of having Paul Skenes for an additional 5 years or an additional 6. It's a huge difference for a team like Pittsburgh, and for Skenes, it's a huge difference as well. He would become a free agent either after his age 27 season or after his age 28 season. Now, again, the Pirates aren't planning to do this as far as I know right now. That's everything I understand about them and their thinking. But they have to be tempted because of these rules. And there's one other thing I want to mention here. We mentioned it in the story, and it's interesting as well. It's the Baseball Writers Association of America's award, the Rookie of the Year award, just like the other major awards. And you have 2 writers from each National League city and each American League city voting on each award: MVP, Cy Young, Manager, and Rookie. So there are 30 voters for each award. There's no East Coast or West Coast bias because every city is represented. But one thing that has come up here is those writers who are voting for National League Rookie of the Year this year will effectively be determining whether Paul Skenes may be staying in Pittsburgh for 5 more years or 6. Now, I get into this. In all sports, there are bonuses tied to awards voting. You see it in the NBA in an even bigger way. Some of the max contracts are tied to where players finish in all NBA selections and MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. It's not that uncommon. And the BBWAA, when this came about, expressed some concern to the league about this whole thing, about where its role would be in this process. And essentially it determined, you know what, we've got 30 voters, our integrity will not be compromised. Everything should be okay. Not ideal. I'm not going to say it's ideal, but it's the way this thing has evolved. And one final thing here, the ownership question with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Clearly, the solution here is to sign Paul Skenes to an extension, right? That is how you get around all these service time questions and the question of whether he'll be a Pirate for 5 years or 6. And some people who commented on the article mentioned, hey, this is what should happen here. The owner should spend money. I get it. The owner should spend money. And in February, Stephen Nesbitt and I wrote a story about Bob Nutting's ownership of the Pirates and how his inability, or refusal, I should say, to spend more money is a problem for this franchise, a huge problem for this franchise. This article, however, is dealing with a real-world situation right now. The reality is the Pirates are a low-revenue team that historically is a bottom 5 payroll team. That's who they are. That's who they're going to be. The purpose of this article was not to get them to spend more money and spend on Paul Skenes with an extension. The purpose was to lay out the problem, lay out this issue that has arisen from these 2 rules that were adopted in the 2022 CBA, and to point out that because Skenes is such a unicorn, so unique in the game, that he raises certain issues that maybe other players won't. For position players, this is not as difficult. Position players, you're less inclined to hold them down at all or bring them up slowly, ramp them up slowly, because the workload is not an issue. So with guys like Gunnar Henderson and Julio Rodriguez, you start them opening day and you don't worry about it. Pitchers are different. So that's the story. That's the idea that we had and tried to execute as well as we could. It's interesting. I encourage everyone to read it before having an opinion, because usually you probably should read the thing before you kind of form a judgment. We'll be back after a quick word from Scott Braun, AJ Przinsky, and Eric Kratz.
Big shout out to America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh, for helping us eat good during this busy time of the year for us. With HelloFresh, you get pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. It's home cooking made easy, fun, and affordable.
HelloFresh makes it easy, even for picky eaters like Scott. There's a changing menu of 50 recipes to choose from each week. Customize it to fit your taste. There's protein and veggie swap options too. The recipes are easy to follow. Just choose your delivery day, open your box, cook, and eat.
My house is busy with sports, but family dinners are important. My fam eats better, healthier, and we cook so much easier with HelloFresh.
And for a limited time, kids eat free. Go to HelloFresh.com/FTKids to unlock this exclusive offer. 1 free kids meal per box for 2 months while subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/FTKids.
Time now for Grillin Ken, the part of the show where you guys get to ask me questions. Let's get going. First question comes from Robin Adams, who asks, Pat Murphy, NL Manager of the Year? Robin, to me, this is a runaway. Keep in mind what Murphy stepped into. a void that was created by the move of Craig Counsell to the Cubs. Craig Counsell, rightly regarded as one of the best managers in the game, gets an $8 million a year contract from the Cubs. Not only does Murphy have to replace the guy that he served as bench coach for many years, the Brewers lose Corbin Burns. They trade him. They lose Brandon Woodruff to injury. They have all of these other injuries going on, and yet they have, as I said earlier, the biggest lead of any division leader in the game today. When I think about the NL Manager of the Year race, I kind of have a hard time coming up with a runner-up. Right now, it would probably be Mike Schilt of the Padres, Torey Lovullo of the Diamondbacks. Depending on how the races turn out, either one of those guys could be second, third, vice versa. There are some other candidates as well. I don't know that Dave Roberts will get much support when his team spent nearly $1 billion in the offseason, but they have had to overcome a lot of injuries, no doubt. And then there's Carlos Mendoza. If the Mets somehow get in, I could see him getting some votes as well. But Murphy, as I said, is a runaway winner for me. It's been a remarkable job that entire organization has done, right down from the front office to the manager and the coaches to the players. They've just had a great year, and I'm sure, well, I feel relatively certain that there are honors coming their way. Second question. This one also regards the NL Central from Kevin Powell, who asks, should we pay any attention to the Cubs? They're winning games and have a favorable schedule the rest of the way. They've gone 10-6 since Paredes' first game, and they're only 5.5 out of that last wild card spot. Okay, that's true. They're 5.5 games out of the last wild card spot, but they're trailing 3 teams. Their playoff odds as of Monday morning are 3.5%. Let's not forget, they're still 3 games under 500. They have played somewhat better of late, and yes, they do have the easiest remaining schedule in the National League. That's a good point. I just don't see them going on this incredible run and taking the third wild card. Not when you've got the Braves there, and it just seems, okay, maybe you can pass the Mets, the Cardinals, the Giants, but I just don't see it happening for the Cubs. It's just too big a mountain to climb. It's interesting, Paredes, you mentioned him, he has not done all that well since the deadline. Not done well at all, really. Batting 153, with a 555 OPS. So it's not like Isaac Paredes has been a difference maker for them. If he starts to become one, if they get a couple of guys hot, then maybe they go on this run, and the league certainly is wide open, but I just don't see them making the playoffs this year. Final question. This one comes from James Yorchak, who asks, do you see the Braves catching the Phillies with a month and a half left to play? They play 7 games over the next 2 weeks, and the Braves have 7 games to make up. That's true. And these next 2 weeks, those games will largely determine, I would think, how this division plays out. But 7 games is not an insignificant deficit. And the Braves' odds of winning the division as of Monday morning were at about 11%. Not 0, not even below 5%, 11%, 1 in 10 chance, essentially. And that's about how I would assess it. The Phillies have played a little bit better, actually significantly better in the last week. They're looking more like the Phillies again. And they do have that series coming up this week. That one is in Atlanta, and then there's another one coming up in Philadelphia after that toward the end of the month. I can see the race tightening somewhat. I don't know that I can see the Braves making up 7 games. What I want to see from the Braves is better play down the stretch, securing a wild card to be sure. They've dropped from the first position to the third, and they've got to protect their flank a little bit. They can be a dangerous postseason team if their starting pitching comes together. Sale, leading contender for the National League Cy Young. Fried needs to pitch better. He has not been that good since coming off the IL. They've got Schwellenbach, who's been hot. They've got Ronaldo Lopez coming off the IL as well. And they've got Charlie Morton basically being Charlie Morton. So if they can get that group lined up and if they can get their offense ticking, then I can see them being a dangerous club in October. I just do not see them overtaking the Phillies for the division. Thanks everyone for your questions. Thanks everyone for watching, for listening. We'll be back Thursday at our normal time, 12:30 Eastern, with our normal co-host, Alana Rizzo. She'll be back this week. We'll have the Thursday show, and you know where to find us. YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Like us, subscribe to us. We'll talk to you guys Thursday.
The bonus code to use is FOUL. If you're new on the BetMGM Sportsbook app, look at how excited Jamie Foxx is. You can download it, Deposit at least $10 into the new account, place your first wager, get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your bet falls. And if your bet does lose, the bonus bets get to you once your initial wager is settled. Gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey everybody, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Fair Territory airs each week, and we'd love for you to become part of our community. Here's another video you might enjoy. See you next time.